Yeah, so Grace will be my co-host today. Uh, she'll be handling any questions or comments from the community.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry. It's all good. All right,
Yeah, I appreciate something.
Looks like we're all live.
Yeah.
Right, let's get started. So welcome everyone to Stranger Conversations. Where here we share stories about unlikely paths to career and to life, and to figure out the why and the how of taking a path less traveled. So I'm Sean, and my co-host is Grace. And Happy New Year, everyone. We have taken a short break over the last months or so, but this year we're going to be back with many more guests and their stories. And our first guest of 2022, and I'm so glad to have you here today, is Sophian.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, everyone, for having me today.
Yeah, and I know you just got back from your retreat, and you're here with us, so I really appreciate that.
Oh, no worries, and Happy New Year, everyone, again.
Right, so let's get right into it, right? So maybe you can just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, my name is Sophian. I'm born and raised in Singapore, but I've lived overseas for, I think, more than 10 years now. Well, in terms of the Singaporean standards, you have to always explain what you really are, your race. So I'm half Chinese, half Malay. So therefore, my name Malay comes from Sophian, and then the Ho is my Chinese surname. So yeah, so I have I grew up basically being a biracial, and I have the best of both worlds. And then and I moved to Australia. I started living overseas in Australia to do my undergraduate studies, and then it became an addiction, and I just loved the experience living overseas, and I just never looked back. So every time when I came back to Singapore, I stayed for a couple of years, and I still went overseas again. And so now this adventure has taken me to living in Portugal, in Lisbon in particular.
Nice, nice. So there's this quote, right, that I like very much. It's the first step towards getting somewhere is deciding that you're not going to stay in the same place.
Yes.
And I thought it was awesome to have you on today because you kind of exemplify that, right? You kind of moved to a different place, like so many times throughout your life, But first, I think we want to focus on where you are right now. So can you tell us a little bit about the place that you're at?
Well, I'm based in Lisbon, Portugal, and there are not many of us Singaporeans over here, which I kind of like it in a way. I think there are only about 30 plus registered Singaporeans in this country. So I've been living here for about a year now, and I feel most comfortable living here, and so this is my this is I think very happy here. I can see myself being in Portugal for a long time. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you said, right? You said you kind of like it here, that not many people actually knew about you or knew you, when you first moved here, right? Can you tell us why?
Well, actually, to be honest, Portugal was never in the plans, never in the cards. I actually came here from a trip. I was in Budapest, and I was going to Morocco, and at that time, it was only TAP Portugal that flew to Morocco, and I decided, well, since I'm flying with TAP Portugal, why not stay in Lisbon for a week and just to explore the city. So after my trip from Morocco, I stayed in Lisbon, and I traveled a bit around Portugal, and I just thought to myself, wow, this is something I never expected. I really like being in this country, and I feel very comfortable here. And yeah, and I remember on my last day when I was walking around Lisbon, I was walking around the old quarters, and then I was sat at a square, and then I sat down and thought to myself, oh, wouldn't it be nice to live here? But you see, that that time that was just a dream, just a thought. It wasn't something I consciously planned. And then it was only about 6 months later when I came back, I thought, oh, maybe might be a possibility. And then I investigated more about it. And yeah, and I was actually planning to move in October 2019, but things got delayed. And then I rescheduled it for March 2020. And of course, we know what happened during that time. I was told not to, I was in Dubai. I was about to get ready to go to Portugal. And then I was advised not to come over to Portugal. And then I took a flight straight back to Australia. And I kind of shelved the idea for about a few months. And I thought, well, maybe this might not happen. And then I revisited the idea again around August to 2020. And I applied for my visa. And then yeah, and I was very surprised. I got my visa within 5 working days compared to other people who took about 60 days. So I just thought, wow, Portugal's so efficient like Singapore. But that's just an illusion. Uh, yeah. So then I got the visa, and I made the move to come here over in December 2020. Yeah. So that's how I end up being here.
Oh, that's very nice. I mean, it feels like it was a bit of a winding journey, right? Like, oh, you wanted to go, but then things got in the way, and a bit of a back and forth, and then eventually you made it. And all of this started with you walking into that square, into that old quarters. Can you kind of like paint a picture of the place?
Okay. Well, it's basically a quite a historical square, and so like there's a boutique hotel that's on one side, and then the square is in the middle, and then there's a palace which is in ruins on the other side of the square. And I was actually just one decided to go to Alfama, which is the old quarters up the hill, and I walked around, and I really like what I see, especially looking at the viewpoints. And then when I went, I decided. So part of it, I was just had a thought in my mind like, oh, let's see what Asian groceries they sell over here. So I went over to the unofficial Chinatown area and the Bangla Bazaar area just to have a look at the groceries. And I thought, oh, this kind of makes sense. I mean, they don't have everything, but I can still I can still adapt and work around it. And then yeah, and I really enjoyed the day, and also the fact that it was a blue sky day that really helped. So everything was beautiful, it was nice. And then yeah, that's how I got that thought in my mind, like, oh wow, wouldn't it be nice to live over here? Yeah.
Was there something about the place that was different from, I guess, Australia where you were living back then?
Yeah, I had the perception that Europe would be very similar to Australia, but actually it's not. I mean, culturally it's quite different. In Portugal, people are more family oriented, very much like Asia. They stick to their families, and they hang out with their families for every occasion and at public holidays. And then also but in general, I find that people here they are warmer. Yeah, they like to engage, chatting with me or with strangers and do small talks, and they are willing to help out also when you need some help. And I think what I find about the Portuguese is that they are very flexible. They can speak in many languages. But of course, they really appreciate when we speak their language, even if it's broken Portuguese. So they really appreciate that. And yeah, and I find this warmth that I've never felt anywhere else in the world, actually. And people going out their way to help out, people chatting with you, and then being engaging, and yeah, the warmth I've get, yeah, it's nothing I got in anywhere else I lived actually. I mean, not to say that my friends are bad, anything. No, it's not that, not that way. But it's just a very different sense of community over here. People are very warm and people are very welcoming. And I really, yeah, it really makes me feel at home. Yeah, and they really make you feel comfortable.
Wow, wow.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been pretty impactful. It must have had a big impression on you, even from those few days that you were there in Portugal that time.
Yeah, yeah, but definitely. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
there for only a week, but also like I traveled to Porto, I traveled to other places just to have a look around. Like I just
Mhm.
thought, it's going to be one trip and I myself maximize as much as I can. But the more I discovered Portugal, the more I actually started to fall in love with it. Yeah.
And at that time, were you thinking of moving or
Uh,
not really?
okay. Well, I wasn't really thinking of moving, but this is where I usually, whenever I travel, I have this perception where whenever I go to different countries, I always ask myself, can I see myself living here? So I try to see life in more like from a local point of view and do like normal day-to-day things. I mean, apart from of course going to some tourist sites, I try to see how locals live. I try to observe the culture over here, try to learn a bit of the language and yeah, and engage talks with local people. So that's what I try to do. Like whenever I travel, I always try to see myself, like ask myself, can I see myself living here? So that's my perception when I when I overseas usually.
Well, that's super interesting, right? Like
Yeah.
most people would be like super comfortable staying in the same place and only taking like occasional or yearly trips, right? Overseas, you know. Would you be able to say a bit more about what makes you like kind of like addicted or kind of like,
Okay.
think in this way?
Okay. Well, I think my inspiration actually came from my aunt, who's more from my Malay part of the family. She was the first Malay who got a full scholarship for the British Council in Singapore at that time in the 70s. And she studied in Wales. And I was always fascinated by her stories, like, back in those days, I don't know not to sure about you guys, but before digital cameras came about, we had the slide projectors and everything was in the, little slide bit. And she would show pictures of her travels, her life in Wales, her life in her traveling to London. And also I remember like when she worked in the National Library, every year she would always travel to different places. And I was always fascinated, like, oh, why she go to different countries, especially sort of unknown countries to Singaporeans here. I mean, at that time, I guess everybody would think about Australia or London or Paris or New York, but she would go to places like Morocco and yeah, different Tunisia and unique countries, yeah, and South Africa. So I think that's how I got the inspiration from that, and I became very curious about the world. I read encyclopedia those pre-internet days. And then there was also this program, Lonely Planet, back in the 90s, where Ian Wright traveled, and yeah, it was just inspirational. And I always told myself, that's what I really want to do when I grow up, and I want to travel as much as I can. I want to, if possible, I like to live overseas too. You know, so finally, when in my early 20s after my national service, I decided, like I want to try to live overseas. So I decided to live in Australia to do my undergraduate. So it was more like an adventure to live overseas than to study actually. But yeah, that was, I think, I think that's whole part of the whole adventure. I was living in this country town called Armadale in northern New South Wales. So it's a small town between Brisbane and Sydney. It's about 8 hours drive to Sydney and about 6 hours drive to Brisbane. So there were only like 20,000 people. And I just thought, oh, well, since I grew up in the city, why not live in the countryside? I enjoyed it. But after 6 months, I realized that, you know what, I'm a city boy at heart. I cannot live in the kampong anymore. Yeah. So that's where I realized that okay, you know, if when you live in the countryside, your perception has to change a little bit. I have to adapt, and then I have to like realize. I realized that you know your networks, your friends, really makes a difference in whether you enjoy living in the countryside or not. So yeah, so and yeah, so after my whole degree, I came back and I was still, you know, very, I was still, yeah, yearning for the adventure. And I decided that, you know, I was working as a musician at that time. I was playing Indonesian traditional music called the gamelan. And, and I used that opportunity to every school holidays, because also I was teaching part-time at LaSalle. Every school holidays, I would live in Indonesia to study the music and also to travel around a bit around Indonesia while I can. So yeah, so that's how the addiction addiction yeah just came and it just never stopped.
Yeah, so it's like after you had the first taste of it, then you had a
Yeah.
second taste, and then before long, before you know it, it's just something, it's just a part of you, right? It's just kind of like
Yes.
something that you do.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Because a part of you, and then you just like yeah, you just yearn for the adventure. And then even though like life in Singapore was good, but I always felt that you know it's nice to go out and yeah, I just fascinated with the fact that being in Singapore, you know, you go 1 hour flight to KL or to Indonesia or 2 hour flight to Bangkok, you suddenly see a very different people don't speak English, very different science, very different language, different culture, different food. I just love that. Yeah.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about what you're doing right now in Lisbon, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically in Lisbon, well, the idea came about. Well, to be honest, you know, it's like when I came here, I just saw like, I was researching about like jobs and everything, and I realized the pay here is not so you know not so good. It's quite low, and I was thinking to myself, well, you know, if the pay is quite low, I might as well like you know consider doing my own business. But what can I do? So I was kind of finding around and looking for inspiration stuff like that, and excuse me, and then I was looking for you know of course being Singaporean you every now and then you do miss your Asian food, and of course there's no Singaporean food over here, so you know the other alternative is trying out Thai food or you know other kind of cuisine, Asian cuisine. So and then I realized the Asian food here is not, you know, it's not really good. It's very much to Portuguese taste, and yeah, I didn't quite like it. And I just thought to myself, okay, this could be a potential where I can present Singapore food, um, and and then I was, you know, I was trying to go around Lisbon and trying to find in groceries, trying to find you know, groceries that I can get in Singapore, no problem over here. But of course, you know, it's quite limited in Portugal. And also, I was trying to network with people and asking them about, you know, yeah, Asian food, and that's how I and and also like I was also looking for the Portuguese connection. You know, I when I was in school, I enjoyed studying history, and what I realized is that you know the Portuguese left a mark in our part of the world, which changed quite a lot of things. But then over here, it's not really not much talk about. So then I say, okay, there's a gap between this awareness between Portuguese influences in Asian food, or at least in Malay food, and also like there's no Singaporean restaurant or Singapore food establishments over here. So why not I do something like about Asian food that's Southeast Asian food that's has Portuguese influence in it. So what I do is I for now I'm doing home dining, where I do this platform called Meetup, where I open up dining experiences and also at my home on the weekends, and people can come, and I'll do also like yeah, I cook Singapore food. I cook mainly Malay food, And then I also share stories about the Portuguese influence in Malay food and how it changed some of our cooking principles. And also part of it, and that's one part of it. And then the other part of it is I also introduced Portuguese Eurasian food, and I wanted to share because people like the Portuguese, especially, I find that the locals, when I talk to them, it's like, oh yeah, we've been to Malacca. Have you tried the food? You do know the food? No, we don't know. So I thought, okay, well, that's an opportunity there. So I also introduced Portuguese Eurasian cooking classes over here, just to share with people like how Portuguese have left their mark in Malacca and also like in Singapore. So these are the two things I do over here in Portugal, and it's been about. I only started in around May last year because of the lockdown, and I didn't want to. It was still very much of a risk at that time, and I felt May the numbers was getting lower, and people were starting to get vaccinated, and then I thought, okay, maybe it's the safest time to start. So I've been doing that for a while, for about 6-7 months now already. Just that, yeah, I've been taking a break in December because of Christmas, and yeah, I'll start again from the week after next. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I think many Singaporeans have actually lived or studied overseas, and definitely, right, like food is always at the top of their mind.
Very much.
Yeah, I remember one of the first things I did when I moved to London was to look for the Chinatown. When I moved to Chicago, I looked for
Yes.
the Chinatown.
I know, but
But
at least you can get good Asian food over there. Yeah. Whereas in Portugal, it's just like almost non-existent.
yeah, but like you kind of like took it one step further, right? Like you're gonna like, okay, I can't find the food here, so I'm gonna start my own restaurant from my home.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, because I just feel like you said this is potential, like, why is Asian food so misrepresented or underrepresented over here? And I just felt like, I need to do some justice in Southeast Asian food at least, because then they know what real, Southeast Asian food or Singapore food is like.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So that's the main thing was to create the awareness. Yeah.
right. And have you been cooking all your life? Were you a trained chef?
Well, the funny thing is that I'm not a trained chef. I've always been a home cook, and it's cooking is something I always enjoy, especially when I'm overseas. I hardly cook in Singapore because you've got your family who cook for you, and then so like life was pretty stressful, and it's just easier to go down to the hawker center to eat than to spend 1 hour cooking. So that kind of makes sense. So yeah. But every time whenever I actually started cooking when I was in my early teens actually, and my mom hated me being in the kitchen, and she you start from zero. But I remember watching when I was younger. I remember watching this program called Yan Can Cook, and he was this Asian American who did like Chinese food shows in America, and how he made it accessible to the Americans. And I was inspired by his program, and I did thought about being a chef, but never really thought being doing it professionally seriously. Then in Australia, I cooked on my own basically because out of necessity. There were 6 Chinese restaurants where I was based, but there was no Thai, no Southeast Asian food. So the only other way when I miss, especially spicy food, and I miss Malay food, I would cook like I would ask my mom for the recipe and I cook. Yeah, and then so from there I started to discover different dishes. I learn more, and then when I come back to Singapore, even though I don't really cook, but I like to observe people cooking. I like to hang out with them in the kitchen, and I sometimes I hang out with aunties, and then they will tell stories about the food, or sometimes history about the food they cook. So I find it always fascinated by it. So I think this is the foodie part of me, like but we enjoy eating a lot, but also I take a step further where I want to understand, what this food memories mean to them, what is this the story behind these dishes, or yeah, and then from there, sometimes I do further research. I go and read articles online and see what scholars write about certain foods and stuff like that. So that's how I discovered about Portuguese influences in Malay food, yeah, and even Asian food. So yeah.
I learned this term when I was in Malaysia. It's
Mm.
called makcik bawang.
Matik bawang, okay.
Yeah. So it's like the aunties, right, who get together and chop onions.
Yeah.
So makcik
Yes,
is
yes.
auntie and bawang is onion. And when they do that, then all the gossip and all the stories will flow.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, those
So
would yeah. I remember growing up, yeah, it was like that in Singapore when I was a child. Yeah. Then I think as everyone passed on, it became less and less. Yeah.
So, can you share with us a bit about how it feels like, for you, right? To be doing this in Portugal, to be running this little private dining restaurant, to be cooking Malay food, or Malay food with other influences for Portuguese folks, to be sharing the history of that, right? Can you relate any stories, that you may have?
Um, well, okay, there's actually another person, another Singaporean who's based in Porto who's doing the same thing, but she does Chinese food. So I do Malay food over here. Yeah, and to me, interestingly, I thought it was not going to be that easy for people to understand my food and to also like to understand this concept about Singapore food. So, but interestingly, I've actually my the people who come for my events or for my dining experiences are mainly expats and a smaller portion of Portuguese. Um, those people they travel overseas quite a lot, or they live overseas and they've been to Singapore, so they can relate to the food. And sometimes they tell me like, oh, can I have certain food, And I say, okay, sure, I'm willing to do that. I'm happy to do that. Yeah, and yeah, I think that's what interestingly is my main. I mean, my main customers, my main clients are actually Americans, interestingly, and they are here retired, and then they just like Asian food basically, and then they cannot find good Asian food, and I'm surprised that the American clients, they actually love their spicy food, so they actually ask me to make more spicy. So I'm like, wow. So there was one time I remember like I did Thai cooking for one event, just as a special event kind of thing. I was trying to test out Thai cooking, and so I had a whole bowl of prik nampla, which is cut chilies and fish sauce and a bit of garlic.
Did you
And
get the bird's eye chilies, like the
yes,
small
I
ones?
got a
Yeah.
bird's eye chili. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got a bird's eye chili,
Wow, those are spicy.
and those are very spicy. And they finished everything. They asked for more. I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? It's like these Americans are more adventurous than me. Yeah. So yeah, I do get a diverse range of clients over here, but mainly it's always been American expats, with, and then some, yeah, then with a small portion of Portuguese who have lived overseas, or they travel to Asia, so they can relate to that. Yeah. So even when I was making some friends in the islands, in Azores Island, um, I met this guy. He used to live in Indonesia. He's here like, oh, I miss nasi goreng, and can you make nasi goreng for me? It's like with really spicy food. It's like, okay, that's interesting. So yeah, so you do get actually people who are adventurous enough to try spicy food, adventurous enough to yeah, they've been in Singapore, they know what Singapore food, basically what Singapore food is like, and then they're willing to try it out. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Like you are expanding their culinary palette, right, over there. Um,
Yeah.
were there any other interesting or tricky encounters that you had?
Um, tricky encounters. Can you do you I don't know to sure. Yeah, maybe you can give me some
Uh,
examples or
Anything
like
maybe that was a bit
uh,
more challenging for you, or maybe something that where you messed up a little bit, or you know, uh,
well, I always do messed up a little bit when I'm preparing because I always like I get myself really stressed out thinking about making sure that I get it right and everything and food safety and cleanliness is always on my mind. And this is something I picked up when I was working at cafe many years ago, and I just keep thinking, clean as you go, clean as you go. And I always, yeah, I think I put stress on myself in the sense I want to make sure that I produce good quality food and authentic food as possible, and people will enjoy it, and people enjoy the whole experience. And yeah, I think in terms of bungled it up or messed up, yeah, maybe it's like sometimes I might overestimate or underestimate my timing, and I will still be cooking 5 minutes before they arrive, or even while they or when they are there. But yeah, that's pretty minor in a way.
and then how do you deal with or handle those situations?
Um, I think just smile and be honest, and they understand and they're okay with it, and then I engage conversations with them a little bit, and or I leave them. I let them know, like, please give me a few more minutes. I just need to get this sorted out, and then they are okay with entertaining with themselves, and I try to engage in conversations with them every now and then. So yeah, so far it's been the reception has been quite good. Yeah. So I mean, for me, it's like personally, I've cooked my food so many times to the point that I don't feel I got bored of eating my own food. Uh, but yeah, but people enjoy it. So to me, it's like, really? Okay. Yeah. So but it's a nice reassuring thing that people enjoy. So I'm pretty glad to know about that. Yeah. Yeah, and I do get some returning clients, so I think that's a good sign for me.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask maybe like one more question, and then I'll open it up to see if there are questions from the other folks on this call.
Okay.
Uh, one thing that kind of strikes me about you is that I get this sense that no matter what happens, you kind of take it in your stride. You don't look
Yeah.
like you're panicking, or you don't look like
Yeah, panicking at the back.
at the back, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, like, given your journey, given like all these different things that you've been doing, given that you're running what is basically a restaurant and you're not a chef and you're still doing it,
Mhm.
there must be lots of things that you have to overcome, right? Um,
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
yeah, can you kind of like share with me, like
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. I think the first thing in my mind when I started this whole thing, is like the justification in like within my ego and myself. And it's like, hey, you're not a trained chef. Why are you doing this? You come from the arts background. Why are you doing this? But then I keep, I told myself, but well, there's an opportunity over here because not many people know about it, and I feel I can take this challenge. I feel I can take this challenge. It may be something somewhat of a mammoth task initially, but if you take baby steps and you start doing something, it gets better and better every time. So yeah, I think this is something also I've learned when I moved different places. Um, like I realized is that what I studied and what I used to work in Singapore doesn't necessarily apply or transferable in various countries. So like when I used to lecture in Singapore, doesn't mean that I can do the same lecturing thing in Australia because the qualifications are quite different and expectations are different. So therefore, I have to learn to adapt to the situation. Um, yeah, and then when I move over here, also like know that the arts, what I did in Singapore, so wouldn't be applicable over here. So I had to learn to adapt and try to to see what I can do. And I think at the end of the day, I realized that the commonality about all different places are different things I do. I may be jack of all trades, but master of none. But I realized that I'm pretty good in organizing events. Then I can and I enjoy being in the creative zone. So whether it's doing something or organizing something or presenting an artist, that's always been part of it. I thrive in it. I enjoy it. So I that's how I learned to adapt and then get into it. But of course, it's every day when I do it, I'll always always doubt myself and question myself. And I think that's normal. It's just, it's just being human. Your ego always tells you that you're never good enough and you'll never be good at what you do. But I just have to keep pushing myself and say, look, I can do something. If I can do one little thing per day, and it all adds up, and then it gets better and better, and it builds the confidence from there. Yeah. So taking a step every time, a little step, baby step, it really helps. Yeah.
I think that's really, really important, right? Like doing just that one little thing per day. If you get too ambitious, then you're just going to set yourself up for failure, right?
Yeah, and then you're going to crash your own course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do have more stuff to ask you about the creative zone, but I would like others to get some questions in.
Sure.
Maybe I can jump in. So, Sophia, I was a bit curious about what you mentioned that you should just do a little bit every day and then you can build your confidence. Then, in the middle of striving and trying to build your skills, build your confidence, and build your expertise, are you the kind of person who will set goals, or are you sort of content to see where things go? Like, what are some of the thoughts behind it?
Okay, I think I'm a bit of both actually. So there are days where I set goals and I would write it down or in my notes or somewhere and I say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to attempt by this week or today, and I'll do it. And and sometimes, I mean, of course, life, gets in the way and things get in the way and you don't get to where I don't get to where my goal is, but I eventually I'll work towards that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then how do you deal with, like, I don't know, have you ever encountered times when things don't go according to your expectations, and how would you say you usually approach such situations?
Oh yeah, I always get that a lot. Things don't get into my. Yeah, I mean, I think that's also like in general, like that's life. Yeah, like for example, like when I wanted to move to Portugal, and then when the pandemic happened, lockdown happened, I thought, oh, maybe this is a sign that I'm not meant to come over here and everything like that. So I kind of told myself, okay, like let's just shelf it away for a little while and then let's revisit again one day when things get better. So yeah, I think that's how I realized in life it's very much the things that you want. Life will present you with many different challenges if you are if that's a goal that you want to reach. You just have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and then one day it will be presented to you. Yeah. But of course, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. But yeah, as long as I tell myself I keep trying and I keep going towards that goal, I'm just going to give my 100% and do all I can.
Yeah. Well, I ask this because you strike me as the kind of person who is kind of who practices non-attachment. So you hope towards something. If it doesn't go your way, you're still like pretty okay. You're okay to see where life takes you. I think that's a pretty nice way to go about doing life as well.
Yeah. I think in the sense that I'm not kind of person where it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't happen, yeah, whatever, okay, But I tell myself, okay, it doesn't happen. Okay, maybe there's a challenge over here, there's a block. How can I move this block and then go to the next step? How can I address this challenge? So yeah, well, I don't want to. Yeah, I think you're right in that part where I practice in non-attachment. I try not to be too engaged in it because I think that's one thing I realized. Like when I lived in Singapore, I got so stressed out with everything, and that really, I think that really, yeah, drove me. Well, would I say mad or insane? I think it's the overthinking. Like what if this, what if that, what if things going to go right and everything. So I've learned I've learned to practice detachment, and I'm trying to tell myself, okay, like, you do whatever you can, try your best. If it doesn't work out, let's try another solution. Let's try another approach and everything. And if it really doesn't work out, it's just not meant to be. Let's go for plan B or plan C or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, I always feel like life will find a way to work things out. Yeah. It's always a solution to everything.
Okay, that's interesting. Then how would you say you feel about your life now? Has it worked out so far?
It hasn't worked out exactly what I planned it to be, but it's getting there somewhere. Somehow it's step by step. So I'm trying to enjoy the process while I can. Of course, there are some days where it gets frustrating and everything. I feel like, hey, I've got a good product over here. I'm doing something good, but why I'm not getting customers coming in for certain dates? And then after a while, I also realized that people are not traveling to the country because because the situation over here with COVID. So like sometimes people are not traveling, and then so I just have to take a step back and try to use it as a R&D and to do other dishes or think about other events and stuff like that. So yeah, I try not to distract. I try not to focus so much on the disappointment, the challenges. I find my solutions in a way to by distracting myself to think about other goals, think about doing other things and that will comes in the whole picture.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to double click on this point about being in Singapore.
Yeah.
We're always asking like, what if this, what if that? We're just stressing out about all the potential things that could happen, all the risks, all the things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
And clearly you have figured something out that allowed you to maybe get out of that mindset a little bit. But many others haven't. So can you share like how did you do it? How did you figure it out?
Well, just to clarify first, I'm still Singaporean at heart. there's always the what if. The Singaporean in me over here is always what if this, what if that, and everything. But it's more like I tell myself, okay, do not, Sophian, you're out of Singapore. Don't think like a Singaporean. I mean, I one thing I must say that I really appreciate my time in Singapore is that the efficiency and so like how how things are organized, and that's something that I brought with me. And but I try not to dwell too much into it because I think I remember in my previous workplace where if things don't go according to plan, everybody gets panic and it's like the end of the world kind of thing. I mean, sometimes it becomes that kind of case. And I always tell myself, like, you know what, like things may not turn out, things may not work out, but let's try this other way, or let's find this another solution to the problem. I think it's mainly through experience, mainly through life experience and through career experience. I've learned to deal with that and to be detached, even though I'm not 100% there. It still gets to me every now and then, but I do my best not to focus too much into it, and especially telling myself, look, I'm not in Singapore anymore. Don't try not to think that way. Try not to panic so easily, and try not to think of the worst case scenario.
And I think that links with something else you said, right? Which is for the things that you want in life, life will present you with challenges.
Yeah.
You know,
Always.
so always, right? Always.
Yeah.
So like it's almost like challenges are part of the journey. You know, so challenges are not the end of the world; they are part of the journey. Um, was there something or some moments in your life experience that gave you the confidence that this was the case, right? That challenges aren't the end of the world. Challenges are just bumps on the way to get there.
Mm. I think it's only because of my age. So it becomes sort of like a foolproof kind of thing where realize that, well, it's not the end of the world. It's always a way around it, and working through a solution through it. And I think I think when I was in Singapore, when I first started my career, I mean, of course, you lack that life experience, you lack that work experience, then I tend to think of the worst case scenario. But after through all the challenges that I face, I realized that, hey, it's not so bad after all. You can still find a way around. Yeah. So I think I think it's very much how, yeah, every individual has a different life experience and different set of challenges. Mine is no different than anyone. It's just presented in different ways, and sometimes maybe a bit more challenging than others. But I think I think what I've learned is not to sound spiritual or anything like that, but when you learn to trust the universe, that this could be meant for you, or this is meant for you, you just allow things to go in, allow yourself to go into the process of pain and challenges, um, and so like work through it, and just don't be too hard on yourself, basically. Yeah, that's the most important. Try not to be too hard on yourself, even though that's hard, easier said than done. But I think that's the most important thing. Be kind to yourself. Don't take things too hard, and know that there's always a way around it. I think this is so one thing, a quote that I have from a Thai friend of mine. She told me once. I mean, when I was a really low point in my life. I think when I was 23. Um, she told me, like, what, in Thai we have this saying that no matter what happens, there's always a solution to everything. And that kept on my mind, till this day, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes it's not the way that you want things you expect things to happen, but try to see it as a blessing in disguise. And who knows, it could work out better than you expect.
Yeah, it sounds like, when you say, oh, thinking of the worst case scenario, don't be too hard on yourself. It's going to turn out better than you expect. It sounds like maybe it's, and I don't just mean you, but you as in generally people, right? Like, sounds like you're you're making it harder for yourself. You're the cause
Yes.
of all
Yeah.
of this pain or whatever, right?
Yeah.
and and maybe it's not really the external circumstances. It's more
Yeah,
like
it's very
you.
much that, yeah, your internal fighting with your mind and your ego and your brain, and yeah, so it's all can either go positive or go very negative.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
There are two directions I want to go. One
Yeah,
is to ask you a bit more about, kind of like retracing, right? All the various places that you have been to and all the different things you have done. And
sure.
the other direction is I want to get a bit more into the creative zone that you mentioned.
Mhm.
So this is a bit of a choose your own adventure. Which one would you like to talk about first?
um, anything, yeah. I'm easy. Don't worry.
So maybe I think if we retrace your steps a bit, maybe that would give our viewers, our audience, um, a bit more context, right, as to like, what the
Sure.
creative zone means to you. So let's start with
Mhm.
kind of the facts first, right?
Okay. Well, in terms of creative zone, I realized that I studied in the arts. I actually studied arts management when I was doing my diploma, but at the same time as well, I really I love history. Then I did world history when I was doing my undergraduate with a bit of like ethnomusicology, which is studying of world music. Yeah, and
Can you
so I started.
can you explain a bit about what is the ethnomusicology and world music?
Oh, okay. So ethnomusicology is study of world music, world traditional musics around the world. So it was not like how to say. I did like it's more like an overview of studying of world music. So I studied music from Africa, from Southern Africa, North Africa, American Indians, Latin America, European. Um, Papua New Guinea, Australian Aboriginal music, but I choose to specialize in Indonesian gamelan music. So I actually, yeah, when I was doing my diploma, I did Indonesian gamelan music as an elective, and that was something initially I just stumbled into by accident. I wanted to get it was just for the fun of getting extra credit points, and then it became like became something I really enjoy. It became almost like a passion, and then I got a bit more serious into it, and I studied the music, and then when I came back, I thought, this is it. Once I study, I'm never going to come back doing that music again. But somehow at that time, MOE was going through this phase where they were developing traditional music of Singapore, where schools will have the MEP program and AEP program. So that's where we get government grants, toward funding, and then I became active, being a musician and so a presenter for workshops, and also did some training for schools doing SYF. So so that somehow got into it, and I always thought about, like, learning Indonesian music is something that you cannot just do for a few years and you master it. So it takes about 40 years to master just one type of ensemble. And I used the opportunity to actually travel to Indonesia, live in Bali to learn the music. So that's how I I was in that part of the creative zone and performing arts creative zone. And so I was actually doing, then I did my postgraduate education, where I studied about how Westerners study Indonesian music. What are the techniques? Because when you're coming from the Western culture, you have all these theories, all these notes and everything, but learning music in the Asian culture is very much about observing your teacher, about hearing and going for events to really remember the music cycles. So I did that for my postgraduate, and I was hoping to continue on to that. But then somehow I was presented in this opportunity where, when Marina Bay Sands was under construction, they were doing this program called the Art Path. So where so Marina Bay Sands was engaging a lot of artists to present their works, public artworks in the hotel area, and I got involved in that, and I did one of the I organized one of the actually two of the artworks here. One in the hotel reception in Marina Bay Sands, and then one in the underground MRT station. So yeah, so if you go to the hotel reception, there's a plug next to the reception, and it bears my name in it. So that's my legacy over there. So yeah, then somehow, because of that, people really, my boss at the time really like what I do, and then they offered me a position in the visual arts, and I was having a struggle with myself, like, hey, like, I'm supposed to be doing performing arts. Why suddenly this coming up? So I was struggling with that, in my mind, and I thought, okay, you know what, let's just give it a go, and you never know what it might turn out to be. So that so I did visual arts instead for about 2 years plus. Then from there, I was with Singapore Toilet Print Institute at that time. I was organizing exhibitions and being the exhibition designer, and also doing art fairs in Hong Kong, in New York, in London. Yeah, and then I was presented another opportunity where I to lecture in Ngee Ann Poly at that time. So I said yes to that, and I taught there for about, I think, 5 years. Yeah, before I left Singapore. Yeah, so I think
Can I
at
just
the
jump in
end,
here for a moment?
sure, sure.
So you started out with ethnomusicology and a bit of history,
Yeah.
and then you picked up the gamelan, right? And you went deep into it, Bali,
Yeah,
and then you switched over to the visual arts,
visual arts.
right? So was there any training, or like you just kind of made the
Uh,
jump without
well,
much training?
well, I was really trained in arts management, so I kind of know the artists, and I sort of know the process. It's just that I was not exposed to the visual arts for a very long while. So it was still a big learning curve for me, because sort of like picked up where I left, and a lot of, but somehow it was, at the same time, it was natural in a way, because I have organizational skills, and I'm quite good at organizing events. So I kind of know what the processes are and what to do. It's just a different kind of modality.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and then you switch to exhibition design, which I guess is another set of skills, right?
Yeah. So I learned the job on the go, and then I realized that, oh my gosh, not bad actually. Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, of course, the initial few months were a struggle, and then but I've learned I learned on the job, and then pick things up from there, and then I realized, okay, this is actually not as bad as I thought it was. I thought, I'm only going to last a month, and that's it. Yeah.
Can we
So,
get into your mind a little bit, right? Like every time like you're presented with an opportunity that required a kind of a different set of skills, right?
yeah,
From what you had previously had. So
yeah.
why
I
make
I
that
think this
jump?
is I know. I think this is a thing. Life plays this joke on me somehow. I think I could, being having born and raised in Singapore, you have this perception that, okay, you do this degree, you study this path, and that's it. That's going to be your whole life path. But then that's what's something I have in my mind always. I'm going to be, I'm just going to be working in an office job, 9 to 5 kind of thing, all my life, and then life presents this opportunity, and then I realize, I don't know if I can take it, but then somehow the people seem to like me. They seem to like me enough to give me this challenge. And then I thought to myself, okay, let's it's something that I'm really not comfortable, but let's give it a try. And sometimes I was just like, oh my gosh, no, what the hell am I getting myself into? you know yeah, then that's where I realized that, gosh, I've sort of become this master of all trades, but jack of all trades, but master of none. And then but even though I was doing different jobs, but I realized that the key things that kept things, you know, kept things grounded and were similar were like organizing events, and then being in the creative zone, and being in the arts basically, and yeah, and being able to build relationships with my colleagues, and making sure we have good relationships. They can help me out, we can help each other out. So I think that really those are the key yeah, those are the key things that really helped me along the way, and that kind of set ground for all of the things that happened, even though everything was a different modality.
Got it. Got it. Um,
Yeah.
okay. Can you continue a bit more briefly with the rest of your history? So after the
Yeah,
exhibition design.
so yeah, after that, oh my god. So yeah, after the exhibition design, then yeah. So while I was lecturing, it also came to a point I was getting a bit I was getting a bit bored, and so I wanted something. I just needed something to distract me from work on the weekends, especially. I tried to take ceramics class. I tried to do stuff like that, and then a friend of mine bought a place in Bangkok and asked me if I want to help to do some interior design. Yeah, and then I said, well, it's just an exciting opportunity. So I thought, okay, why not do it? So I spent a few months actually in Bangkok doing that, and it was quite a challenge because, you know, here's me thinking that people in Bangkok can speak English, but oh my gosh, that's a whole different story. Only in tourist sites they all speak English, but once you go local, nobody speaks English, and then I have to speak. The only way I can get around is speak in Thai English, and speak a lot slower, and learn a few Thai words at a time. So yeah, so that was an interesting job. Then I just realized, oh, I can actually do that too. So
Wait, what is
then
Thai English?
oh my, I don't know where to go there. I was like, it's rather than saying like normal English, you just have to say like you speak in more on your tone level.
Right.
Me no lie, no app, no app.
I see. So
Yeah.
English with a Thai accent.
Yeah. Yeah. So then that, because I realized that in Thai you say you pronounce things a little bit different. They don't
Oh yeah.
understand. It's a whole different term for them. So like
Yeah.
I wanted to go to this place called Mega Mall where
Mm.
IKEA was. So I cannot say when I say Mega Mall to taxi drivers or Mega Mall to locals, they all like, what is he talking about? And I realized, oh, it's not Mega Mall, it's Mega Mall. So then it's then they didn't understand. So that's how I had to learn to switch a little bit to Thai English. Yeah.
Yeah, don't feel bad about it. I mean, I have to do the same thing over here in Korea. I have to speak Konglish as well.
Yeah. So that's how you learn to adapt in different countries here.
Yeah.
So I find it very, very fascinating actually, and I actually enjoy being in Thailand. Yeah. So after that, then after that project was finished, I was back in teaching again, and then I felt that excuse me, I actually felt that it was time for change. I mean, I couldn't explain in words, but I felt, it was the end of one cycle. It was time for me to to do something else. I couldn't figure it out, but somehow then I was presented like I was presented the Australian permanent residency. So I applied for it when I was doing my undergraduate days, and then I was given a choice whether do I want to apply do the application while I'm in Australia or do the application while I was in Singapore. And then at that time, my career was going quite well in Singapore. I thought, okay, I can wait a little bit. So it actually took 7 years for the process. So that was very long. And then suddenly when I was doing my reservist, I got an email saying that I need to go for my health checkup and everything. So I did all that, and then I was presented with an Australian PR. So I thought, okay, I waited 7 years for this. Should I still go for it or not? So I just thought, you know what, let's just go for it. Then I moved to Australia, and I thought, and I knew that things would not be the same. And then things were very different back then, and so I definitely I wasn't teaching, because I think in Sydney there wasn't really a arts management that was not really that strong in Sydney compared to Melbourne. And then I switched and I worked in a book publishing company, so doing historical books of Sydney, which was fascinating for me because I also learned a bit of history about Sydney suburbs and the how each suburb started, and so like looking at old photos what old Sydney was like, and talking to people around and everything, and yeah, so I think that kind of opened up the history geek in me, and yeah, so I enjoy having conversation with people and talking about all this things that happened in the past, and especially with food. Yeah, then I lived in San Francisco for about for 6 months, and while I was when I was in Australia, and then so I moved to Dubai for a little bit, so did some projects while I was in Dubai, did some interior design projects. Um, then yeah, so I kind of moved about when I was in Australia, and that kind of I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that time while I was there, and but I knew that, of course, I knew that it's not going to not going to last that long, and yeah, but I think the thing for me is I thought Australia would be the forever home, but then when I traveled and I went to Portugal, I didn't expect this would be the next possible home. Yeah. And yeah, so that's how I got into to this country basically. So yeah, so I yeah, while I still retain my Australian PR, I still I enjoy living here very much, and I can see myself living here for a long time. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say too soon, but I can see myself, this is could be my place where I'll die.
Wow, wow. I mean, I wish I could say that. I wish I could say like, okay, this is the place, right, that I want to be when I die.
Yeah.
Was there something you were looking for, just kind of like looking back at the arc of all these different things that you have done, all the different places that you have gone to? You say, oh, after some time, then you get bored, then you want to move. Then you do something else, then you get bored again, then you want to move. That's upon reflection, right? Was there something that was driving you, something that you wanted to get to find?
Well, not exactly. I think I was bored at the moment, more like like because I feel like it's become a routine, and I feel like I need some kind of challenge on the side to keep me going, to keep me motivated. Yeah, it's not a yeah, it was not one of those eat pray love kind of situation where I was finding myself and everything like that. Yeah, it was more like, okay, I like to do something a bit different, like to have a bit of challenge, and then from after that, yeah, things kind of presented one thing presented after another, and then I just thought, okay, let's consider this, and do I want to do it or do I not want to do it? Yeah. So yeah, so that's how, yeah, I wasn't really looking for something. I wasn't finding myself. Yeah, I was just I was just looking more for, is there another adventure? I think that's more like it. Yeah.
You're looking for adventure.
Yeah. So I got the event. I got what I want. So I got the adventure. Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
the theme for this talk, for this conversation, we can't put it out there, right? That it's not risk, but it's adventure.
Yeah.
I think many people might think of like moving so many places, switching jobs so many times as risky, as unstable,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you see it differently?
I guess I'm lucky in the sense that, okay, I'm not married. I don't have kids, so I don't have a family. So it's a very different situation compared to if someone who's married and has kids, and then you move into another country, you want to make sure that your family have enough food on the table. Whereas for me, it's like, I'm not responsible to anyone. I'm only responsible to myself. And of course, I'm responsible to my family, but I'm more to myself. So I think I think also the fact that I must say that at least my parents were quite supportive. in a way. They know that they cannot stop me, so they just have to let me do what I need to do. So I mean, yeah, I think any Singaporean parents wouldn't want their kids to live overseas and to be away for so long. But I think I'm glad that I my parents, you know yeah, they allow me to, they don't put restrictions on that bit. So I feel, yeah, a sense of freedom. Yeah. And yeah, and I always feel like, well, this is it's only one life I have over here, and I want to try to make the most out of it. I want to try to have as many experiences as I can, like my aunt, and I want to travel as much as I can. So it's not, yeah, it's not to please anyone. It's more to, yeah, it's just for my own personal satisfaction, my own little adventure. So at least I can say I don't want to be, I don't want to, when I get a lot older, when I get more immobile, I don't want to be saying like, oh, I wish I've done this when I was younger. I wish I've been more adventurous. At least I can say like, well, I've done that, and if I didn't like it, I move on to the next one. If I liked it, yeah, this is it, kind of thing. Yeah, so I think, yeah, that's how I approach it, as, yeah, as my own, yeah, just being different from all my, yeah, my other family members, and being different from everybody else. Yeah, I don't, yeah, I don't set out there to to be defiant, or to do anything, risky, but more like, to me, it's like, well, while you have your health, and while you still can, you have the opportunities, why not try out something different for a change? And if it doesn't work out, we can always go back. So I always tell myself like, well, if things doesn't work out in Portugal, I still have a choice. I can always go back, either go back to Singapore, or I can go back to Australia. So yeah, so while I still have the opportunity, but I still can, why not try this out? Yeah. So yeah, so that's always been on my mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always a plan B.
There's always a plan B.
Yeah. Yeah. Go back home, go back to
Yeah.
Singapore, go back to Australia.
Right. It's not the end of the world, right? You can always
Yeah, it's not the end of the world. Yeah. So
always
yeah, so
activate plan B.
yeah, so I mean, for me personally, I'm hoping I won't go back to Singapore as long as I can. But yeah, I'm hoping that things will work out also over here, while I have the opportunity. Yeah. So yeah, so I think I'm very lucky in a sense that, yeah, I don't have that restrictions, and so like I'm the only one in my whole family tree that is crazy enough to live overseas, and yeah, live in many countries, and go many different places. So yeah, so there's a lot to be, yeah, there's a lot I'm grateful for. There's a lot of things to be blessed, and a lot, um yeah, and at the end of the day, I can say, I have quite a colorful life. Yeah.
Can I ask, right? How much of this moving around, looking for adventure, sort of activities that you're doing, how much of it is related to pursuing or staying in your creative zone?
I think that's an interesting question, because I think actually, let me think about it. I think it's actually very much being involved and still in the creative zone. Yeah, I still like to be in the arts, or doing something creative, basically, and I always try to find ways to yeah to yeah that to be in doing things that I enjoy. Yeah. So I cannot see myself as an IT tech, or I cannot see myself doing finance. So I think this is where I feel most comfortable, most at home. And yeah, so I try to stick into that, yeah, into that zone. Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, let's say not let's say like, you were studying music, right? But then if you wanted to find something that was interesting to Singaporeans, then you had to go off to Bali to get good at gamelan, and they kind of teach it back in Singapore, right?
Yeah.
And likewise, like your cooking, I mean, it's very heavily based in the Malay recipes, right? You cook it in Singapore, maybe people won't appreciate it as much as if you did it in Portugal.
Yeah.
So maybe in that sense, it's kind of like, going to these places gives you the opportunity to do things creatively that you can't do elsewhere.
Yeah, it does actually. And for me, like when I came over here, I mean, I was thinking about ideas, what I can do. And the first thing was food in my mind. And I just kind of, I went to search, looking up for any Singaporean restaurants or Singaporean, like connection. But there were hardly, anything. And then that's when I thought, you know what, this could be this. I rather than seeing it as like, oh my god, this is so terrible. Like I cannot find Asian food over here or good Singapore food. So I thought, well, Asian food here is pretty bad. Maybe I can present, show them what real Singapore food is. So yeah, so I see it as very much as an opportunity there. Because I mean, even though like at the time I was battling myself, like what should I, can I do this? Can I actually pull this off? But I just keep pushing through it.
Right. We ask you the question slightly differently, right? What are the requirements for you to be in the creative zone?
Oh, what are the requirements? Gee.
Like environment, whatever,
I think in a sense that I don't know. I think for me personally, I'm come to think of it like, when I go to places, I like to see things that, cities or towns that they are quite creative. And then so it does kind of show about the openness of a city. So like, Australia, I like to go to museums, galleries, and see what exhibitions they are on, and also shows over here. So I like to see also exhibitions and museums. And and that really, and that kind of like gives me a sort of like a subconscious indication that, how open society could be, how much they embrace other cultures. And so I think, let's say for Portugal itself, when there was this museum I went to called the Orient Museum, and I was very surprised to see they had an exhibition about this Chinese, the Chinese ghost man, the wayang.
Oh, the wayang, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was very surprised to see that collection, and they were trying to explain about the different kinds of wayang in Southeast Asia and also in Hong Kong, and seeing the costumes and everything. It's like, wow, okay, that shows how kind of open they are and everything. But then I was, at the same time, I was kind of looking for like, okay, then maybe they might talk a bit about the colonies and stuff like that. And then so I was looking something from Malacca, and there was this little small picture like this size about map of Malacca. So it's like, oh my gosh, that's it about Malacca. And to me personally, I feel like they really have a lot of influences in Malacca, in Malaysia and in Indonesia. Why aren't they embracing it? So that's why I see this opportunity, like, okay, let's do something about it. Let's create this awareness.
Nice. And we have a question here from Yoshan. A more light-hearted question, she says. Just wondering, how do you get your spices and ingredients for cooking Asian food in Portugal?
Okay.
Good question.
Well,
very good question.
Yeah, that's a good question here. Because I was like struggling for the first, before I moved here, I was struggling like, oh my God, you cannot get lemongrass, cannot get galangal, you cannot get certain ingredients, and then it's only when I moved here I realized that you cannot get things at one store. It's not like a one-stop shop kind of thing. It's not like in Singapore, you can get everything at NTUC, you can get everything at wet market. You can, or even in Sydney, you can get everything in one place. Here it's like I have to go to, there's I think 4 or 5 Chinese Asian supermarket. And I have to go, sometimes I have to go to 2 or 3 to find different ingredients, because let's say one of the supermarkets, they don't have they're like, how to say, their vegetables don't look that fresh. So I go to another supermarket and buy the fresh ingredients. And then but I go to the not so fresh vegetables to buy dry ingredients. So, and then after that, I have to go to this place called Tamak Market. Then I there's this lady who I always go to. Her name is Elizabeth, and she actually sells like fresh lemongrass, sometimes fresh galangal, fresh turmeric. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is godsend, so all the fresh aromatics that I want to grow. So that's something. And then there's another place I go to, this Filipino grocery store, which is a few stations from where I am, and she sells like some Southeast Asian products too. And sometimes also I can also order like some Singapore products from her if I want to. And a lot of products over here, Asian products, they don't directly come to Portugal. They are all shipped to Netherlands, and then from Netherlands they are land transported to Portugal. So I get my Filipino friend to help out to buy some certain stuff from Netherlands, because since she owns a grocery store, she can buy some ingredients for me. And then little things like laksa leaves, of course you cannot find it over here. So that's one of the things I did. I actually bought a baby laksa plant when I was in Australia, and I brought it hand carried all the way here, and now I'm growing it. And then now I'm starting to build this little thing where I'm taking out the little stems and giving my friends to grow it, and then another friend to grow it, so that there's to make sure there's a consistent supply of laksa leaves, so I can make my laksa. So all these little things that adds up, and then like little things like tempeh. I cannot find tempeh in the grocery stores over here, so in the Asian grocery stores. So I end up going up to the big the cold storage of Portugal called Continent. So to go up to take about half an hour train ride to the big shopping mall, and then they sell tempeh for the vegetarians. So I'm like, oh wow, to me this is so bizarre. You cannot find this at Asian grocery stores, but you can find it at the major supermarket. So different little things. And even like when I want to make bandung, so it's like I cannot, you need to find the evaporated milk, the Dutch lady evaporated milk. I cannot find that over here. So I end up, I travel around and I look around for places and everywhere. So I end up like 1 hour's train ride and bus ride to this other shopping mall that actually sells evaporated milk, so I can make my bandung. So it's a rigmarole to go around many different places and spots to find your ingredients to get and so at times so I also depend on people who are coming here to buy some things. So to buy some Asian supplies I cannot find over here. So when I do go back to Singapore, definitely it's going to be a big shopping trip. So not everything I can find, but I try to make the most out of it. And sometimes I try to find substitutes. Let's say if I cannot find candle nuts, which helps to make the curry creamier, I use macadamia nuts, kind of thing. Because candle nuts over here is considered like illegal. They say it's sort of a drug kind of thing. So like, so I got my friends from Canada to actually buy candle nuts, and they brought it over here. So it's a very interesting shopping process over here, and compared to Singapore or Australia.
Yeah, I mean your story about bandung like is making me very thirsty, and it's like when was the last time I had bandung, right? So that's a kind of a rose flavored
Yes, rose syrup.
sweet
Yeah.
milky drink. Um, does anyone else have any other questions?
Not really, but yeah, I relate to being thirsty now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe as a kind of a final one, like what are your plans, right, for the future, if you have any, like your plans for Weave the Story, your plans for
Yeah.
what you want to do in Portugal in 2022.
Well, I'm actually starting this thing called, I started doing my own home dining thing, and I feel like I need to start to expand a bit more. So I'm actually not only going to do Singapore food, but I'm actually trying to expand further and to do Southeast Asian food, present Southeast Asian food over here. So I started this thing called Southeast Asian Supper Club, and I'm looking out for, I've been looking out for some venues to present this kind of the dishes, Southeast Asian dishes. So I am kind of talking out and collaborating with other chefs. So like let's say, we are still thinking about it at the moment right now, because the way things are going, we're just not sure we want to continue with the event. So we initially, me and this other Singaporean chef in Porto, we wanted to collab and do this the Chinese New Year reunion dinner kind of event, where we will have Singapore Chinese food, what is served in Singapore rather than what's served in China. Because I feel like for us, we felt that when people talk, see Asians, they always think we are from China, or Singapore is somewhere in Hong Kong or somewhere in China kind of thing. But they don't understand that for Chinese food, there's so much variety, so many variation. So we wanted to do that, Singapore style kind of Chinese New Year dinner with the lo hei and ngoh hiang and all this stuff. So that was our plan. Yeah. So if we don't do it in the event space, then we might do it like in our own homes or something like that. And then every month I'm going to present different themes. Like I'm going to present Malay food maybe for month of March, and then in April I want to present Thai food because it's Songkran Festival and the Thai New Year, and then so to make it a bit more exciting rather than just the same kind of food. So and then of course in May I'm trying to present like Hari Raya food if possible. Yeah, if I'm in Portugal, because I'm thinking about coming over to Singapore during Hari Raya if I can, depending on the situation. Yeah, so and what I want to do, I want to keep a little variety, and also of course I want to present Portuguese Eurasian food at some point. So and that's what I want to show, that the diversity, creating this awareness on the diversity of Southeast Asian food. Yeah, and that's the idea. And also like in terms of my channel, I'm so going to this year I'm going a bit of a different direction, where I'm going to present a bit differently, and I'm going to present more of cooking on my own, what I cook at home or what I cook on my for my dining experiences in my vlogs, so that people have a better idea. Yeah, because I didn't want to, and then because at that time, my numbers are still growing, I feel like it wasn't the right time to share that yet. So I feel now this year is a better time to share, and I want to share more of Singapore food. So that's what I'm hoping to do. Yeah. So yeah, so those are the two main things I want to do, and and also like one of the things I'm also and keen on doing more research on Portuguese influenced food. Um, I'm hoping I can do a little documentary about Eurasian food, or Portuguese influences in Malaysia, a bit more in Malaysia, a bit more in Singapore. So if any Eurasian family in Singapore are willing to share their recipes with me or willing to meet me, I would love to meet you and talk, and share things. I also want to do a bit more like I'm curious and I want to do a bit more research about the Portuguese settlement in Bangkok and also in Jakarta. So, and then they also have a quite interesting story, and they have quite interesting foods also that doesn't exist anywhere else. So yeah, so I think that's the main things that are happening.
Yeah, very nice, and all the best, right? For
Thank you.
2022, and
Yeah.
what I can see is that you're just bringing together all of these little things, not little things. We bring together all the things that you enjoy, right? Whether it's food or it's history or it's like being creative. And I think you
Yeah.
are making it fun, not just for your audience, but also for yourself.
Yeah, I am. I try to. So like, because I
Yeah.
feel like I don't want to come to a point like, oh my gosh, I'm tired of cooking what I'm cook. I want to do something different, but
Yeah.
I want to try to make it so interesting so that it's not only like for me, but also for others. So if I feel like if I'm enjoying it, I think others will also enjoying it.
Yeah, and I think that's the essence, right, of what makes it an adventure. It's not
Yes.
about like the risk or the challenge, but it's just about kind of the fun of it.
Yeah, the fun of it is setting out a venture for yourselves and not putting that not putting too much pressure on yourself and then just enjoying the process while you're at it. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, and I think that's such a big takeaway. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Sophian.
No, thank you very much for your time. Yeah, and thank you
Oh,
everyone for joining today's conversation.
yeah, and I enjoyed it very much, really. Thank you. Thank you, Grace, and thank you everyone who asked questions as well. If you want to follow us, this year we bring in many more guests and many more stories. Give us a follow on Instagram at Stranger Convos, where we'll be posting all of our updates and our upcoming events. Thanks so much, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.